This is a video of how to make a end grain cutting board using purple heart and hard maple. There's a lot of different steps in this. The first one is, since I'm using rough sawn lumber to join it, as you can see in the video, I'm joining a piece of maple right now to get it to be square so that it'll match up evenly with the other boards, and that the glue line will be nice and square and even. To make it different designs, you can cut the boards at different widths, so it's kind of up to you as to how you want to do it. And the particular one I'm making now, I made 2 cuts at 1.5 inches wide, 4 cuts at 1 inch wide, and then 4 cuts at 1/2 inch wide. So that's kind of the design that will come out. You'll see it later. It's always a good idea, as you saw earlier, to put some wax down and everything. It just makes it easier for getting all of the pieces off once the glue is dried, because the glue will run out. You'll see that soon in this video. So just always a good idea to do that. It makes your work later on a lot easier. Then you kind of glue it up on the ends. There'll be 2 glue ups with this cutting board since it's an end grain one. So this is the first one. I always like to use extra clamps to clamp down on the wood. This just helps keep everything square and flat. Since I did plane them all to the same width, it just really helps. It helps the board to come out nice and even. So it's not a bad idea to do that if you have the clamps. And then I also put a few more throughout the middle, just to make sure I'm getting even clamping throughout the entire board. And there you can see there's the runoff. It'll drip through on both sides. That just means that I did a good job gluing it up. Once you've let it dry for at least 5 or 6 hours, I let mine sit overnight just to make sure it's not going to fall apart when I'm working the rest of the board. You can pull it off there, and there's your product that you have so far. And then you go back to the table saw and you'll rip those pieces. I cut these at 1.5 inches wide, so my board, the thickness of it's actually going to be 1.5 inches, and you'll see that here in the next glue up. So now is when you flip them up on the end grain to actually make the board. And then I flipped them, each one end over end, to make it the little checkerboard pattern, so that they all each piece of maple will line up with a piece of purple heart and vice versa. Just makes a cool design. I think it looks pretty cool anyway. So there's lots of different things you can do as far as cutting boards go. It's kind of there's lots of different people out there that make different ones, and I'm sure I'll have other videos up as well where I make different types of them. So this is the second glue up. As you can see, pretty much the same as the first one. I still use those boards to clamp down to make sure I'm getting even pressure throughout, and to make sure that the boards are going to be lined up evenly. Again, I leave this sit overnight. You at least want to leave it sit for 5 or 6 hours, but I do leave mine sit overnight. After you get that done, you got to sand it down, get all the glue marks out. As you can see, I already did. I always sand with my palm sander. It just helps do a good job, and it makes it easier on me. I'll do that up to 150 grit, and then the rest of it, all the way up to 400 grit, I'll do by hand. Just take my time. With this particular cutting board, I'm using a salad bowl finish, as you can see there, made by General Finishes. It does a better job, I think, than mineral oil. There's less maintenance, and it just overall, I think, looks better. If you do get it wet, it doesn't start to become rough again. And then here's the finished product.
Salvation is here. Salvation is here, and it lives in me. Salvation is here. Salvation in God just to set me free.